สวัสดีค่ะยินดีต้อนรับเข้าสู่รายการ Tech Hustle Thailand เป็นรายการที่จะพาคุณท่องเข้าไปในโลกของเทคโนโลยีกับดิฉันแพรทะแก้วกล้าวแก้วมังคละโฮสต์ของรายการนี้ค่ะก่อนอื่นเลยนะคะแพรต้องขอบคุณสปอนเซอร์ของรายการ Cascade Associates Asia Recruitment ที่สนับสนุนให้มีรายการในวันนี้ได้ทาง Cascade เนี่ยนะคะเขาเป็น Recruitment Agency ที่เรียกได้ว่ามีความเชี่ยวชาญทางด้านเทคโดยเฉพาะเลยนะคะก็ไม่ว่าจะเป็นทางด้าน Functional หรือว่าทางด้าน Technical อย่างเช่นสาย Software Development เองนะคะก็ทาง Cascade เนี่ยเขาก็มี Specialization ครอบคลุมทั้งหมดเลยค่ะก็ถ้าท่านใดสนใจนะคะสามารถติดตามได้โดยตรงที่ show notes ด้านล่างเลยนะคะในวันนี้นะคะเป็นเอพิโซดที่4เนาะก็อยากจะแนะนำโฮสต์ในเอพิโซดนี้นะคะซึ่งโฮสต์ในเอพิโซดนี้เนี่ยก็คือคุณปอนภัชรเจริญทรัพย์นะคะคุณปอนเนี่ยจริงๆเป็นเพื่อนร่วมงานของแพรเองเนาะแล้วก็เราเคยทำงานร่วมกันใกล้ชิดกันมาก่อนนะคะคุณปอนเนี่ยดำรงตำแหน่งเป็น Java DevOps แล้วก็ Cloud Recruitment Consultant ผู้มากฝีมือนะคะจาก Cascade Associates โดยตรงก็ในเอพิโซดของเราวันนี้แขกรับเชิญคือคุณนิโคลัส ลูชีเซงนะคะคุณนิกเนี่ยดำรงตำแหน่งเป็น MachineLearningOps Engineer อยู่ที่ True Digital Group ในปัจจุบันนะคะเดี๋ยวยังไงเนี่ยตอนนี้แพรจะขอเล่าถึงประวัติโดยย่อของคุณนิกให้ฟังนะคะคุณนิโคลัสเนี่ยเรียกได้ว่าเป็นคนหนึ่งที่สามารถช่วยสร้างแรงบันดาลใจให้กับทั้งตัวแพรเองแล้วก็เรียกได้ว่าท่านผู้ฟังได้ดีเลยทีเดียวนะคะเหตุผลเนี่ยก็เพราะว่าในฐานะที่คุณนิกเนี่ยเขาไม่ได้จบโดยตรงทางด้านสายคอมพิวเตอร์มาซะทีเดียวเนาะแต่ว่าด้วยความหลงไหลแล้วก็ความมุ่งมั่นของเขาอะค่ะทำให้เขาเนี่ยได้อยู่ในเส้นทางที่เขาต้องการได้ในตอนนี้ด้วยโรของเขาที่ปัจจุบันเป็น MachineLearningOps เส้นทางของเขาเนี่ยก็เริ่มมาตั้งแต่นะคะเก็บเกี่ยวประสบการณ์ทางด้านสายงานฟรีแลนซ์แล้วก็ขยับมาเป็น Data Engineer จนสามารถพัฒนามาทำสาย Ops ในปัจจุบันเรียกได้ว่าน่าประทับใจมากๆนะคะเป็นสายทางที่เรียกว่า unconventional นะคะก็ในพอดแคสต์เอพิโซดที่4เนี่ยนะคะคุณนิกเนี่ยเขาจะมาเล่าให้พวกเราฟังในเรื่องเส้นทางของเขานะคะแล้วก็ประสบการณ์ในการทำงานทางด้าน Machine Learning Ops แล้วก็สิ่งต่างๆที่เขาได้เรียนรู้มาโดยตลอดการทำงานทางด้านสาย Ops นี้นะคะสิ่งพิเศษของคุณนิกก็คือว่าเขาเนี่ยสามารถที่จะพูดคุยแล้วก็อธิบายให้คนที่ทำงานในสายงานที่อาจจะไม่ใช่สาย Ops โดยตรงแต่ว่าอาจจะเป็นคนที่สนใจในสายงานนี้เนาะสามารถที่จะมีความเข้าใจได้ง่ายนะคะในเนื้อหาหรือว่าในคอนเทนต์ของเขาแล้วก็แพรเชื่อเลยว่าสิ่งที่เขากำลังจะเล่าให้เราฟังเนี่ยมันจะเป็นประโยชน์เนาะแล้วก็สามารถสร้างแรงบันดาลใจให้เราทั้งหลายเนี่ยไม่มากก็น้อยนะคะวันนี้แพรยินดีต้อนรับคุณนิโคลัสแล้วก็ท่านผู้ฟังทั้งหลายเข้าสู่รายการค่ะยินดีต้อนรับค่ะ
Welcome to Tech Hustle Podcast. Today, I'm your host, Bon, a Java DevOps and Cloud Recruitment Consultant. Today, we are really delighted to have our special guest with us today. Please welcome Mr. Nicholas Lu Chee Seng, or Nick. So, Nick has been living and working in Thailand for 2 years, right?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bon. I really find it's very pleasant to work in this beautiful city of Bangkok.
Yeah.
Like every moment's been very enjoyable, and even amid this pandemic, I feel it's really I'm thankful because we still have a job here nowadays. So definitely a very pleasant place to work with.
Right. Do you will you recommend any of like maybe other expat that might be interested in moving somewhere else to work in Thailand?
Oh yeah, definitely. I would say like every time if I were to ask like from my colleague back in hometown or what, it's like you know what, you should consider move over in Bangkok.
Yeah, right.
It's such a great place to work.
Right, of course. Okay, so I might just delve into your background here. So it is very interesting to me because you got a degree in physics, right, from Union University. So from my experience as a recruitment consultant, I've noticed that like I could say like many of people that with graduated with physics degree tends to if they prefer to work in technology field, it will be mostly like data science. But for your profile, it seems that you have a degree in physics, but you got to work in the engineering aspect of technology. So can you tell me the story of how did you decide to get into the technology field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was actually a very a cliche question, because like usually yeah, you're right. Most people who graduated from physics, they ended up either working as researcher or working in the data scientist, because they're very data oriented person, and they're very analytical person. Me myself, I graduated from undergrad physics, so my technical of model building and all that wasn't really the great. So I didn't really start as a hardcore mathematic people, and also the tech guy. Basically, started with very basic physics, and mathematics. And how I started with IT is that I like to play with hardware at first. I like to build computers with my friend, just putting them together, and I grew up with a household that has computer back then. Very thankful with that, and that kind of like sparked myself, how to get into programming eventually, which is very very late in the time, because I learned programming back in like junior year and senior year of college, and that's where I kind of get the root of IT and the tech oriented layer. So eventually, I kind of started from teacher. I'm gonna talk with the background later on, but yeah, long story short, it was just like because I graduated with physics and wanting to find myself what's my passion. But ultimately, I like to play with computer and eventually move into computer field, and that's how I ended up here as IT field.
So that's very interesting. So as you got like personal interest with computer technology, but I'm curious why in data technology field specifically?
Yeah, that's a good question, because back like I would say maybe 6 years ago or 5 years or maybe even 7 years ago, data science was very early in the infancy, right? I was not introduced to data science until 2014 or 15, where I started my first IT job. And that time, like no one even would bother look into this field, this green, super green field. But now, like the ecosystem has changed completely, because like it's just become like the top job search and also top paying job in that. So I think because of that, the early introduction that I was exposed, that kind of moved me to the current work that I'm working on right now. Because I actually started with building my own big data cluster in my own single machine to test with, and because that time big data was like kind of like the big wave coming up, alongside with data science. But they thought most people thought big data is gonna be like the future. But eventually now, because container like becoming like the overshadow of big data. So big data is kind of like everything is being absorbed into containerized environment, because and that's I think now why I moved here into the current data world is that due to the early introduction of my peers on this field.
Right. Okay. So it is very interesting to me about the concepts of machine learning ops. I I must admit that I did not notice about this concept before, but due to my research, that this machine learning ops is not a totally new concept, but I could see that a lot of companies that adopt the big data practice or even like data science or even they want to work on product recommendation, trying to adopt the machine learning ops practice nowadays. But I must admit again that I'm not totally understand all the concept of machine learning ops. It's quite new. So can you tell us about machine learning ops? What is the role of this person, and what would be the mission that this machine learning ops engineer has to achieve?
Yeah, definitely I can. So what in a nutshell, machine learning ops is a combination of machine learning with operations.
Yeah.
And basically, in a machine learning workflow, it started with a projection or maybe an experimentation of what you want to predict or implement in order to achieve a particular business objective. For example, you may want to create a text search for user that kind of uses machine learning to predict what they're looking in your platform and suggest the product they want, right? So that is a particular business objective, and from that to do that you have to assign data scientists to build a particular model because you want to build that AI system. And to build that model, a lot of things needs to be done, right? So data scientists needs to collect data from either like a sample data set they have, or even script data from somewhere else they don't have access right now. And it has a lot of different branches of where they want to get the data, right? And eventually, once they have the data, they want to train that data to build a model, right? So the model would need to be trained either in a parallel way or maybe in a batch way. So and eventually ship into a production. I may speed these things up in a more distilled way, but long story short, it's a full cycle of design, model development, and operations. So MLOps covers these three pipeline, and is essentially pretty much a DevOps of machine learning. I would say, quote unquote, because MLOps, the definition constantly changes, and depending on company, each company will have different MLOps definitions. For I would say even for true a very specific branch, and if I discuss MLOps with my different peer across different functional, we will have different definitions.
Right.
But long story short, MLOps is essentially just to provide the full integration, seamless integration from product development to deployment, and basically make delivery much more faster and rapid. Because the dawn of right now, people are doing a lot of fast delivery and fast implementation and testing. So this kind of paradigm makes the ambition of makes product much more faster, rapidly, and try to experiment it in a more scalable way.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it is it's still constantly changing in my own definition book, but for now I would say it's a very design a very deployment based and also tightly integrated with data scientist workflow.
As that is very dynamic role with the you have to work cross-functional with many business units and with the demand from business that requires a instant need. So from what I hear, it is very highly challenging role. So how do you term with the challenging things around machine learning ops?
Yeah. So in the challenges of of being an MLOps, I think because right now I'm actually quite new in this machine learning ops because my background is a little bit more on DevOps. Because due to the nature of to be a very well, I think right now a very good MLOps engineer should able to very domain specific in a particular way. What I mean is that if you want to be a very good MLOps, you need to very well versed with the particular business function that you are dealing with. For example, if you are dealing with a lot of recommendation based of model learning, you will actually speed things up in implementing the whole CI/CD pipeline. In terms of CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration and continuous delivery. So what most MLOps they doing are more on building Jenkins file. Jenkins file is a particular framework that kind of build and pack stuff together to run a particular workflow upon a particular code commit, right? So a good MLOps is that you need to have a very good idea of what your business logic is, and you have the good sense of simplify things, because the simplify the more simple particular function that you could implement in your pipeline, the better, because there are actually costs of having peers coming into your team, and when they want to learn the whole pipeline, let's say if you have like a very super complicated pipeline, the learning curve is very huge, right? And it will delay of your delivery and also development phase. So having simplification of your workflow that kind of utilizes some sort of that leverages some sort of cloud product like serverless functions, also automation would be very favorable. Because what I mean is that if you have this kind of simplicity and also cookie cut steps, you will have much more faster delivery and faster implementation and testing to get to a point where you have your full MLOps pipeline. And with a full MLOps pipeline, you could pretty much have like the whole big picture, and you could recreate the same thing under different model and different functional, just to scale your team functionality in there. So I think that's what the most important for as a MLOps principles are, yeah.
All right. So as that involves a lot of business units and a lot of people with various kind of skill sets. So what do you think is the ideal collaborative environment?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a good question. So in order to have like a good A team, I would say an A team as in like your complete ideal team where each people will have like the best skill set possible in your at your disposal. That would be more into like the person that knows how to debug and also trace the error, because in real life a lot of real life error may have different than what we learn usually in the textbook, right? A good people to be collaborative in that sense of getting the tracing the error out is a very good skill set to have. So if you have an engineer that has like good debug skill, that is certainly a good skill to have in your team. And also a good detail person, because when you develop a pipeline, like a detail, you need to have like a very good methodological value of writing CI/CD code and scripts, because a good clean code is a very good implementation and also good practice, and that is certainly added value to your MLOps team. And the third one is actually a very good collaborative person. So because MLOps requires a lot of different cross-functional within team to make a full pipeline, right? It's not just like one person who just write their own CI/CD and deploy it. You have to deal with data scientist, data engineer, product owner, and different stakeholder, right? So a good collaborative environment is a must to form a MLOps team. And because this with a good collaborative, you may have a very good conversation that very clear, very detailed. There's no hidden meaning or political statement in there. It's just all straight work. That I think is the best environment that you could do to work with. And the next one is what I'm thinking is a very good engineer that has a skill set of cloud-based and also a very knowledgeable basically. But I wouldn't say this is a must, but because if you have exposure to cloud, that you could leverage some of your MLOps workload onto the cloud. It can ease things up, you don't really have to worry about manually monitoring the current infrastructure, and just dump it into cloud and have the cloud manage it for you, right? So that cut a lot of workload of your team significantly, and you could much more develop and innovate faster in that.
Right.
So I think that's more important as well. And the last one, I think good for the team composition is the thirst of new framework or new how do you call it, the IT tool set that you could get in the horizon. For example, right now people are very hyped on data lake and
right.
What do you call it, the service mesh, right? I think it is people who know this kind of particular skill are very important, because they could come up with very innovative ideas and kind of help you to build a much more cooler and also much more cutting edge product, because that will actually add value to your team and all that. So that's what I think makes a good team of MLOps.
Right. So it is a blend of team effort and with communication, and even tools that can help shape the working culture. And as you pointed out about cloud technology, so how do you see cloud developing recently?
Yeah. So it's a very good question. I'm a very AWS guy, so I can tell from the recent years, even before COVID, AWS they create a lot of different services in their whole catalog, right? From what I've seen in recent years is that they have been implementing a lot of service-based service. What I mean is that software as a service is becoming their main model. Before that, they were doing mainly platform as a service, where people would just rent servers from them, and the client would just do their own configurations. But things has changed, right? If you know this AWS new catalog in there, most of them are like very software based. For example, Kubernetes as a service is like their top product right now, and also data warehouse as a service is becoming the big thing as well. What I've seen also is that the AI as a service too, because if I look into the AWS catalog of machine learning, they've been doing a lot of basically the whole A to Z need of all the people would need to do into the data science workflow, right? And the development of creation of the recognitions where people can just pass in picture and have the API being to help them analyze the picture for them and charge at the compute cost in that. So these are the things that I see in recent year on cloud, basically software based rather than becoming more platform as a service.
Okay. Right. So and is that so as you have been working in like DevOps and even like machine learning ops, so do you see any myth in ops work that you would like to bust it?
Yeah. So at first, when I was into this machine learning ops role, I thought it would be more like infrastructure based, right? But in matter of fact, it is very I would say deviated from infrastructure as a base, because what I mean is let me go back a little bit a step before infrastructure based. It means that the people would just only handle the hardware side and also the particular compute need for the machine learning engineer, right? And with MLOps, things are actually shifted more into the non-infrastructure side, where the engineer needs to know particular the business value that they are trying to implement, because in MLOps there are such things like risk of delivering the model, because what I mean by risk is that when you're building a machine learning model, that particular model would have some sort of impact on your business value. For example, if you're doing a recommendation engine that is the sole functional of your company product, like maybe e-commerce, right? You're doing cross-selling engine, right? If your model is not doing well in that particular functions, that is a high risk, right? For example, if you are doing a deployment of a new model that is performing worse than the previous model, your business will have been impacted by the model, right? So that is high risk of that model. So in MLOps, there are this kind of risk assessment of that particular machine learning model and all that. And there are actually lower risk of what kind of model that we could in different scenario. For example, if you're doing an auto-correct machine learning model, that would be a much more smaller risk, because it's not a huge. Because autocorrect can be deemed faulty, quote unquote faulty, and it's not really like a life changing of a company, reputation and all that in a particular model deployment, right? So that would be a different spectrum, end of spectrum, where lower risk of model deployment and all that. So yeah, that is a very big myth that I thought was, it's not all infrastructure. It's very based on different. It's a huge paradigm shift in MLOps compared to DevOps or data ops.
Right, and talking about paradigm shift, so there's always been a new paradigm emerging in recent times. So, and how do you see the future of clouds and ops work?
Yeah. So what I actually been I'm very into container right now.
Yeah.
So from what I've actually noticed right now, with all this Kubernetes framework and OpenShift framework, most of them are adopting service mesh based. So I think this is service mesh is a whole new paradigm in the coming years of cloud. Because let me tell you about what service mesh is. Basically, you will have a multi-cloud. Most people will have multi-cloud platform. Maybe they won't have one data center in GCP and another one in AWS. For example, because due to some sort of service offering that they could only get in particular cloud provider, they have to resort in that particular cloud provider. And to accommodate a full connection of their whole microservice-based ecosystem, they will need some sort of service management tool that kind of link everything together in a seamless way, rather than they hard code everything, in a old fashion, right? And that thing is called service mesh. Basically, what it allows is that you could have all these hybrid cloud environment be under the same roof, where they don't really have to change all this traffic in a manual manner. And I think it's a very huge paradigm shift in the coming years, and it's going to be very hot soon. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I come across one of the infographic. It's like cartoonist infographic. Showing the evolution of ops work. So it started from like a very manual ops work, like system engineering, and in the last stage of this evolution, it is a they call it is fully automated ops, where you just press one button and everything will get automated. You won't have to do all those technical headache stops to try to fix the small things. So do you see like the possibility that we can just press one button and everything get automated and
yeah, I would say there will be like a more automation in particular operations work. Yeah. But I wouldn't say, even though when we say automation, it doesn't mean that people are going to be deprecated. We will still need developer and also data scientists and data engineer as much as we need nowadays, right? Because what lies in the operation side, because things always fail. Even though in the cloud there will be node that will come down and your whole service may go down, right? And to accommodate that, there need to be some sort of system that acknowledge that particular downtime and replace that particular down node with a fresh one. So that particular automation is coming up a very more automated way, where people operate. DevOps used to be very, they have to go for how you call that, the shift, and they will have to skip night, sleeping night, like 12-hour shift, right? And now with automation, it's no longer the case, right? When things are failing, things will be automated to be redirected to some other system service, and there won't be like manual intervention much nowadays. So I think, yeah, this is definitely a very huge shift of what we are seeing compared to before previous years, where support team needs to be be up there just to get things running and all that. So, but now it seems like we're getting far away from there.
Right. Okay. So, and in your opinion, so what is the perfect ops guy these days? Like what kind of skill set that this the person needs to process or need to develop? What is the definition of like perfect ops guy in your opinion?
I certainly can give you a lot of this detail. So the perfect ops guy, it would mean that like well-rounded in a way, but not a perfect one yet, because there is no perfect people, right? But a perfect ops guy of my choice would have a guy that is very knowledgeable in doing the code infrastructure as a code. The reason why I say is that the current years people has been transitioning to IAC, which is infrastructure as a code, which kind of leverage on the framework of code as infrastructure as code. It means that you only write code to define your infrastructure, so there won't be manual tinkering of Cloud Console where there will be human error when you do such implementation in that, because with IAC you can reduce human error much significantly and much more blast radius much more lesser, right? So I think GitOps skill set is a must for a good ops guy, and a good experience, I would say. I'm not saying like you could just get a starter and knowing nothing and just be ready to rock the war zone, right? A good ops person should have knowledge of what can be failed and what's the impact of the failure, and acknowledge that kind of impact and able to troubleshoot what is causing that. So I think that's a very good skill set for a good ops person. And second, the third one is actually a good idea of cloud technologies, because nowadays people most of the infrastructure of any company or even startups, right, it lies on cloud, right? So having a good sense of how cloud works and what's the service offering they have is a good one, because imagine that you have a new ops guy in your team. If you want to move some sort of develop a project under a particular time constraint, right? Rather than writing all this all the code from ground up, you could leverage most of the heavy lifting to the cloud and to implement that project in a much more faster pace. And also, it could be even cost saving at some point. So I think that's having a good cloud sense and also cloud skill set is a very important skill set. And also, the next one is more, I would say, this is actually very subjective. I think a good coder and also a good, I would say a little bit more OCD based, that they kind of like, they always want to strive to write very, very clean code. By clean code, it means that, you write unit tests on your code and make sure the code are very well formatted, because in ops world, your code will always be put into review and it'll be maybe shared across different functional. And that code, if you're not writing a very clean code, it can cause a lot of headache to your peers, and it's very hard to debug what you have implemented in that. So having such a good code practice is very important. Right. So the last one, I would say, I would think having the thirst of learning new things. Me myself, I would say I'm nowhere perfect, but I would think having a value of a peer that that can teach you a thing or two is certainly a good ops guy. Even though it's a very basic a basic tool, because in IT world the tooling and also the framework constantly changing, and you can never achieve like 100% of knowing it all, right? and having a shared collective skill set with peers would be very beneficial in the team. Yeah, I think that's the definition of having a perfect ops guy for me.
Talking about certificates, do you think it is compulsory to have, or how important is the certificate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it would play a little bit about 60% of the weight of what your the status is. Because for me, having a certificate is like being a DevOps of an MLOps person. Having this certificate, it's a plus of compared to a non-certified person. I will have more more value on certify that my skills up to the market spec and also validation. But then the 40% that what I put is that it comes through with your experience, right? You can never be like just be certified and ready to rock the job, right? You need to be battle tested with the real world environment, even with certificate or not. The 40% is very important, I think. In matter of fact, some people would, I think, would choose a person without certificate, but then with the current market of the current, the current competition of the market, certificate will make yourself much more stand up. So that's what I think, and I think it's a value added for sure. So that's why I think certify is definitely a plus, but not a must.
I guess as I got to talk to numbers of talent, I find that ops and even DevOps in a bigger picture is getting more popular among computer technology talents. But there is one challenging issue here. It is that as these kind of people, they have passion, they get motivated to work in ops, but they don't have the real field experience yet. So what is your suggestion for people without real field experience to work in ops field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So my 2 cents of for the people who has passion of skill, but then doesn't have the experience on it, right? So you really need to find any possible ways to learn or a real world implementation. What I'm suggesting is that try to find particular side project that you could work on, and try to make the best things out of it. Like how can you improve the operation side of that particular project? For example, you could find such things in maybe a freelancer market. People are willing to even pay money for such gig in that. But I wouldn't say don't be too concerned with the money, but more concerned of what you are doing in that particular gig. So I started with some sort of side gig of doing a freelancer consultation, and eventually into some sort of huge workflow pipelines. And I think it brings a lot of value in terms of helping to promote your experience to a point where you are very battle tested and ready to get a real operations ops work job. And aside of that, it doesn't have to be any freelancer work. You could create your own portfolio. Try to write Medium blog and experimenting with a particular topic that you want to bring to the community and share it to around your LinkedIn or social media. For example, there are a lot of people who are doing Medium blogging, and I think that is very important for you to stand up and also to validate your skill to among the operations peers. And what I did before was that I wrote some Medium blog, even though it's not the best Medium blog. I get every now and then I get likes from people who are trying to implement that particular solution in their field. For example, I've written how to deploy Helm charts using Terraform, and I certainly has that problem because I want to experiment with Kubernetes and also Terraform, but then I don't want to do everything from Web Console. So I wrote this Medium blog and tried to share among the tech community, and I get likes from that, and you can connect with people with that one. So I think that's one way to do that, to expand your experience of your exposure on ops work. And the next one is actually try to be joining community around the social media or even the convention. What I recommend, what I did before was joining KubeCon and also AWS reInvent or any online talks, and you get all these very interesting topic to listen on, and that kind of expands your experience horizon much more too. But certainly you could go from that topic and try to implement, real life implement it in your own project first, and then share it, and that I would say would definitely help in expanding your experience immersion.
So, would you think that proactivity is the key success here?
Yes, definitely. There's no such thing like you take things for granted, like take the certificate and just be like call your qualified certificate in there. And I think you need to do some of your real work and be shown, and just to show that you are very well versed with that particular topic. Like even though with a Medium blog, it can be a very simple implementation, but if it's like stuff that you are wanting to try it and you successfully to implement it, you should write it down into a Medium blog. And I think it's a very good value in the long run, and definitely proactive is the key of success.
Right. So all right, next. So last question. So what is your suggestion for someone who want to start their career in ops? Like what do you think is very important to know for someone who want to start in this field?
Yeah, for me, I think if you want to start into the ops work field, try to get into learn the basic of infrastructure as a code first. Cloud technology. Try to pick one of the main cloud supplier. Sign up for a free account. They give you 1 year free. For example, AWS, they give you a year of free tier. You can have like a micro server, be ready to it. You pay very minimal with all these pet project, and you can start from there. And try to play around with Terraform. I think it's very good way to streamline your work process. And try to learn Git. Git, because everything is based on code, and you commit to the repo, and repo would trigger this different infrastructure as a code. So definitely very helpful on that one. The next one is knowing how to build a pipeline. By pipeline I mean integrating your Git to trigger some sort of third-party applications like Slack or Jenkins or any CI/CD tool, all that. So that would be a very good skill to know to get started with ops work. And also in terms of operation side, try to learn more on logging and tracing, because I think in most of the company they're looking for very log centric people who are very able to find the person that is very good in tracing and finding the root cause of a particular fault and all that. So I think the next one is also the thirst of knowing of learning all this containerized environment is very important, because I think most of the market nowadays are moving towards containerization environment, and I sure think people are looking for people who are very well versed with container system like Kubernetes, Docker, OpenShift. Yeah. So I think these are the skill sets that very valuable to get started into ops work.
Right. All right. Next, so thank you for sharing your suggestions, and I think the conversation here today is very beneficial for those who interested in ops works, or even to people who would like to delve into technology as well. The technology keeps changing every day. It's very dynamic, so there's a lot of things that we have to catch up with. So thank you for being here with us today, Nick. So do you have anything that you like to say before we end the conversation?
Yeah. So I want to thank you for having me in this podcast, and so my recommendation is that keep learning, and there's no golden rule of becoming the perfect ops person, but knowing a few crucial framework and also skill set is very it will lead to your the success in long run. So definitely thank you for having me on. I'm very glad to able to talk in this podcast.
All right. Thank you very much, Nick. So that's it for today for Tech Hustle Today episodes. We hope that this episode will give you the beneficial of getting more knowledge of ops work, more or less. So I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you, Pon.
Right. Thank you, Nick.
Bye.